This tutorial is going to show you how to add dimensions and notes to elevations, plans, sections, and details. When you add dimensions to any drawing, they are always two-dimensional and are not part of the building information model. That means that we will not see them in other drawings. So you want to make sure that you are putting your notes and your dimensions in the correct drawing. First, I'm going to hide the AutoCAD file that I have in the background by clicking on it and going to Hide in View, Elements. Now I'm going to go to the Architecture tab, and we can see here that we don't have any of the dimension tools, but we do have a shortcut, Align Dimension, in the top shortcut bar. But most of the things that we're going to need are going to be on the Annotate tab. That has both that Align Dimension, Linear Dimensions, and other dimension types. The Align is the most common and it works very well, so typically that is what you're going to be using. So with the Align Dimension, we want to zoom into our drawing and want to think about what we want to dimension. If we need an exterior dimension and plan, we want to zoom in and make sure that we are hovering over the location where we need that. So you notice that it's defaulting to the center line of the wall. Typically, construction does not happen from wall center line to wall center line unless we're looking at basic wall stud spacing. So I'm going to change the wall center line to actually be wall faces, which can be both interior face or exterior face. Now when I click on the wall, you notice that a blue line pops up on the outside of the wall or the inside of the wall, and it still gives me the option to dimension from the middle of the wall if I would like to. I'm going to start with an exterior face, and so I want to make sure that I've selected the wall here and the wall on the opposite side on the outside, and then pull my dimension string out and then click. If I want to do an interior dimension, I hit Escape once to get out of that dimension, but to stay in the dimension tool, and then I click on the interior surface of the wall on either side and place that dimension. Another thing that you'll notice is that it defaulted to 4.5 inches and 3 3/4 of an inch. We typically do not get down into fractions of inches when we're doing overall dimensioning for floor plans and elevations. We only do that when we're getting into more detailed and zoomed in drawings like wall sections and floor plan details. So if we go back to the Aligned tool, you notice that the default style was this particular one that came up, and we also have different options. If we want to change anything, we can go and duplicate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Edit Type, I'm going to duplicate that style, and then I'm going to change it. I can leave it to Type 2, or I can call it something else related to what I want, like for the class, but for right now I'm going to stick with that. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change it so that the dimensions round up to the nearest 1 inch instead of a fraction of an inch. I do that by scrolling down, and to get to the text section and the units format section, you see this gray bar and you see the default. When I click on it, you notice that Revit always starts with project settings. Well, we want to uncheck that, and this is where we are able to then change the rounding depending on our project. Here we want to use it for the nearest 1 inch, and those are going to be the ones that we use for our larger scale drawings like our floor plans, our building sections, and our building elevations. We click OK and OK again, and you notice the dimensions that I put in here have not changed. That's because I created a new style. So I need to hit Escape to get out of that command, click on the dimension I've already created, and change it to the new style that I made. And you notice then it rounds that dimension to the nearest 1 inch. It's important to understand that we don't want to have drawings that on these types of drawings go to a fraction of an inch, because that is not how construction is done. But as we move into wall sections and floor plan details, we do want to refine, and so we may not get down to a 32nd of an inch, but a 1/4 of an inch or even an 1/8 of an inch may be appropriate based on what you're detailing. To add notes, we're going to stick with the Annotate tab, and we're going to come over to the Text tool. When we click on the Text tool, you notice different options come up. Automatically, it does not become a note tool, so we actually have to click on the 2-segment line, which is our industry standard, as opposed to our 1-segment line or a curved line. Once you get more experience on detailing and noting, there are some firms that use the curved line as part of that. We're going to stick with the 2-segment, and we click on that. You notice that there's a default text, a 1/4 inch Arial, or 3 3/30 Arial. Well, I would like to edit type, duplicate it, and create an 1/8 of an inch, because 1/8 of an inch is the industry standard for our notes. So not only do we change the name, but we also need to make sure that the text size actually changes to 1/8 of an inch as well. You can get fancy if you want and change the font to different fonts that are here within Revit, but for now we'll stick with Arial. Another thing that you may want to change later is that the background is opaque, and as you're putting notes in, it may cover something up that you don't want to have that opaque background on, but that's something to look at as you start to work. You also may want to change your arrow. I have a preference for using the filled arrow as opposed to the regular arrow, so I'm going to change that as well, and I'm going to hit OK. Now I can actually start noting, and you always start with what you're noting first. That's where the arrow is, and then you move over to where your notes are going to be. Add your second leader line for your 2-segment line, and we typically want that second line to be horizontal. Then you can type your notes. Again, we want to make sure that things are all caps, which is the industry standard. And then when we set that, you notice that it aligns the text and that line together. If I hit escape twice and I click on that note, if I have a note that relates to multiple things, I can actually add an additional leader line. You notice I can put one on this right-hand side, or I can put one on the left-hand side. When we add our second one, even though it's a 2-segment line, it doesn't always perform in the same way, so sometimes we then need to adjust accordingly to make sure that our 2-segment lines look correct. So that's how you add notes and dimensions to your plans, sections, and elevations, keeping in mind that even though we put them here, that doesn't mean they're going to be on another level. So if I go to my second floor, none of those notes are there because they are 2-dimensional and they relate only to the drawing where you put them.